Okay, so hello and welcome to Trust Me, I'm a Philosopher. I'm Jonathan, I'm an academic who works in the UK on the philosophy of trust, and I am delighted to welcome to the channel today Sareh Pouryousefi. Sareh is an assistant professor at the Ted Rogers School of Management here at Toronto Metropolitan University. Sareh, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So the first question then, since this is a channel all about trust, how did you first get interested in trust?
So the first time I started thinking about trust, I was trying to grapple with a completely different literature about the professions. I was trying to understand how it is that we might define the professions, or how to understand the features that are institutionally distinctive about the professions. And I was thinking about everyday interactions we might have, like with our doctors or lawyers or accountants, and trying to understand what it is that we do when we relate to them. And it seemed like we would say we trust them in some sort of special way, in a way that we maybe don't when we talk about the way we go about other kinds of business, like daily kind of, if I go to buy something, or if I am interacting with someone that's just not a professional, but a non-professional, then I might think, okay, well, I should be aware. There's this kind of buyer beware or caveat, I'm sure that's in place.
You said some stuff in there about the difference between the professions and the others, and why that might be interesting from a point of view of trust. I guess, is there anything beyond that kind of hook into the professions and other stuff that really captures your interest? Because I would guess there could be a lot of things that matter in our different relationships that we have between ourselves and professions and ourselves and other organisations. Trust would be one of them, there might be others. Is there anything particularly that you think that then is unique about trust that makes it interesting?
Well, I think there's something about trust and the way that we relate to other people personally when we trust them, as opposed to when we relate to professionals or members of other organizations, and when we trust them. So there's something that's, when in the Lego movie, when the bad guy is about to throw the protagonist over the metaphorical cliff, he'll say, "It's not business. It's not personal. It's just business."
Fortunately, I'm going to have to leave you here to die.
What? Sir,
It's not personal. It's just business. Lord business.
And so there's this thing about it that's supposed to not be personal, and so it's okay, so you're not supposed to have to trust the business person. But when we think about our nurse or our librarian or our doctor, that relationship is also not personal,
right,
but somehow we trust them. So there's something about that relationship between trust and the professional that's interesting.
I mean, unlike me, right? I'm a philosopher. I work in the field of philosophy. You do other things. You have reached out and have gone beyond the philosophy, because you're working at the intersection of a number of different disciplines. Is that something that you find difficult, interesting? How do you find that? And how do you find trust being treated across those different disciplines? Is it the same? Is it different? What's going on? What's fun?
So I think it's really rewarding to not be in a philosophy department, because
Fantastic.
because I get exposed to literature's theoretical approaches that I would otherwise not learn about if I was just working among a bunch of other philosophers. There's also the practical matter of things. So I come across actual practitioners, or I have colleagues who work with actual businesses, actual organizations, and so there's kind of a higher likelihood that I'll bump up against serious practical limitations to philosophical theories just by talking to people in hallways in a way that would not happen in philosophy. So those are the rewarding bits. The hard bits is that trust is a very multidisciplinary topic. There are lots of different approaches to it, even within a given discipline, within philosophy and within management. Lots of people disagree very strongly about definitions, and so it's actually hard to get going talking about the topic without talking past each other or being very, very confused. And then on top of that, in ordinary language, we use the word trust in all kinds of ways. So it gets talked about like in the press in all kinds of ways that aren't necessarily going to track any of the literatures. So there's a lot of confusion, and therefore one needs to be careful.
Absolutely. So apparently I should be leaving my job in the philosophy department and going and doing something more rewarding. Is that the... Excellent.
Here's your invitation.
Here's my invitation, thank you. Well, if you find me working at Toronto Metropolitan University soon, you know what's happened here.
I'll take full credit for it, sure.
Okay, so now we've successfully got me fired, which is excellent. I know that you're doing some work on the professions and you're going to be doing some more. And you mentioned at the start there that this work on the professions was kind of how you got into the work on trust. So what's going on in the work in the professions that's going on at the moment or will be going on soon?
So the professions are interesting because there's a lot of uncertainty about their definition. So there's over 100 years of literature where people disagree about fundamental traits, characteristics, temporal sequences, structures of professional institutions. And they continue to talk about the professions and have kind of people have decided to move on despite this definitional uncertainty that lingers. And we study particular contexts or particular professions irrespective of this broad question mark. And I think that's very unfortunate and it's interesting. I think the most important reason why it needs attention is because professional ethics is a really important normatively relevant governance mechanism. It's very relevant to the regulation of the professions. It's relevant to the role that professions play in society, but we can't really coherently talk about what professional ethics is or what its characteristics are institutionally as opposed to just individual people's particular emotional opinions or particular context-specific rules about what professional ethics is until we've dealt with this kind of definitional uncertainty. So what I'm doing is I'm using an economic model to draw on specific institutional features of what professions are to make sense of their role in society. So it's a descriptive model, but it's grounded in a certain normative stance about how professions are and can serve a socially beneficial role in society.
That all sounds really, really cool. So do you have a pithy way of capturing this? Do you have a preferred definition, something you'd be happy to throw out to us as a little bit of a hint as to what might come?
Not yet.
Not yet. That's fair enough. That's fine. Got to do the research first.
I've written it down. I'm just working on it too.
That's fair enough. We should wait to see it in the journal before we get it on our YouTube channel. Would you be prepared to speculate at all on what that might tell us about trust?
Well, I think ideally, what professional institutions do is they create trust and then they help preserve trust in the services that professionals offer us. So when I visit my doctor, I don't get them to promise me that they will cure me, or when I anticipate driving over a bridge that needs some repair, I don't look into the contract that engineer in charge has signed with the city. I trust that as professionals, these people will go about doing the things that we can ask of them or rely upon them to do, and that they won't let us down, or some notion of what it is that we trust them. So it's not that every single time we might look to see if they've done the work. There's this kind of shared understanding of what the norm is and what the expectations are, so that even if there's mishaps here and there, on the whole, we expect that they will come through. And so the institutions, not only as they were developing, helped create trust in the services of such and such a profession with these very strict regulations and boundaries, but that they preserve the trust that we have. So that, for example, we let many of them be self-regulated, so that, for example, they have governance mechanisms that don't have anybody other than their own peers look into what they are doing and police them. So trust is a very pivotal feature, I think, of what professional ethics is.
Okay, well, Sareh, thank you so much again for your time today. It's been fantastic to talk to you about trust in the professions. Really appreciated it. If you've enjoyed this, please like and subscribe to the channel. It all helps, and I know that I can trust you to do so. Thank you, Sareh.
Thanks for having me.